Hi, this is Eric Michael Lloyd, master's student in psychology, neuropsychology concentration. I was reading an article today regarding, it's from Elsevier, it's regarding functional analysis. This is a part of behaviorism. E.F. Skinner, John B. Watson, Thorndike, and those behaviorists. This also applies to applied behavioral analysis, which works with anyone who likes or needs or utilizes behavioral assessments and behavioral treatments. This one's from ScienceDirect, Cognitive and Behavioral Practice, and this is from Elsevier. The authors of this article are Jerome Yoman, Life Skills Resource. This article presents principles and basic steps for practitioners to complete a functional analysis of client behaviors. The emphasis is on the application of functional analysis to adult mental health clients. This article includes a detailed flowchart containing all major diagnoses and behavioral interventions, with functional assessment questions directing the reader through the chart. The model presented incorporates both operant and classical conditioning and a strategy for selecting target behaviors consistent with behavioral principles. Finally, the article describes the continuing role of functional analysis in the effective behavioral intervention and its potential advantages over other forms of assessment in contemporary cognitive behavioral therapy. Jerome Yoman, Life Skills Resource, once again by Elsevier. This was published in 2008. Functional analysis emerged early in the history of behavioral therapy, actually prior to behavioral therapy itself, as a way of applying the fledgling science of behavior to the practice of behavior change. See Forster, 1972, Kasdan, 1978, Sidman, 1960, and Skinner, 1953. Thus, it might be considered the most primary in its journal series of primers in cognitive and behavioral therapy. Yet the behavioral interventions to which a functional analysis can lead the practitioner, for example, Boutsen and Epstein, 2000, Hopko, Lugez, Ruggiero, and Eifert, 2003, Robum, Maddowes, Resick, and Foy, 2000, are arguably the most powerful components of contemporary cognitive behavioral therapy. Dimijian et al., 2006, Jacobson et al., 1996, Taylor, 2004. Functional analysis is a specific approach to the individual case. It guides the practitioner to effective interventions from observations of possible, causal, or maintaining variables in an individual client's problems and or goals, providing the critical link between assessment and intervention that has been a cornerstone of behavior therapy. Functional analysis provides a framework for case conceptualization and other complex clinical judgments. For example, see Haynes, Leeson, and Blaine, 1997, Virtuez, Ortega, and Haynes, 2005. It can help identify sources of resistance to change. See Edelston and Yoman, 1991, and strategies to promote persistence of change after intervention ends. See Bayer, Wolf, and Raisley, 1968, 1987. Because most practitioners are more familiar with the application of functional analysis to children, for example, Bono and Morris, 1998, Scotty, Mullen, and Hawkins, 1998, Sulzer, Azaroff, and Pollack, 1982, this article will emphasize the application of functional analysis to adults. Consistent with behavioral practice, we begin this premiere on functional analysis by defining our terms. Functional analysis is a fundamental tool of applied behavioral analysis for examining the relationship between behavior and the environment. In performing a functional analysis, the practitioner describes the behavior of interest and its antecedents and consequences in observable, measurable terms. Observable means that the thing described can be picked up with one of the 5 human senses, usually sight or hearing. Sometimes observation is assisted by special instruments. I'm not sure they use sense of smell that much in that one. Example, biofeedback, equipment. Measurable terms means the observations can be objectively recorded in the form of a number. For example, frequency, latency, duration, intensity, etc. Note that the frequency, latency, duration, or intensity of categorical variables, such as a sad or happy facial expression, might also be recorded. Objective recording of observation means that the reliability of data from the observations can be calculated. For example, the extent to which one observer assigns the same number to the same sample of behavior on different occasions, or the extent to which 2 or more observers assign the same number upon observing the same sample of behavior. In this manner, the practitioner of functional analysis uses a specific method to describe 3 components within the analysis, form hypotheses about their interrelationships, and then test those hypotheses. Functional analysis is sometimes called an ABC analysis, after these 3 components: antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. Many people think consequences as necessarily bad. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It's just what follows. Either promotes or decreases the likelihood of a behavior occurring in the future. Functional analysis in operant conditioning. The component typically described first in functional analysis is the behavior of interest. A behavior is the observable action of a living organism. In the case of behavioral therapy, a person. For example, the behavior of interest for a client with substance abuse problems might be lighting and inhaling from a pipe filled with marijuana. For a client entering therapy for help with shyness, the behavior of interest might be calling a friend to invite him to a social activity. The next component described in the antecedent or antecedents of that behavior. An antecedent is a stimulus, an event observable by the person, which precedes the behavior of interest. Antecedents are also known as discriminative stimuli, in that they signal a particular response will be followed by a certain consequence, allowing a person to discriminate when to respond. There are 2 primary types of discriminative stimuli, SDS and S delta S. And SD signals that a certain consequence will follow the behavior, and S delta signals that it will not. For example, Azrin and Haynes, 1984, trained males seeking to improve their heterosocial skills to discriminate interests from female visual face and body cues. They found that this training alone improved role-played social skills in their participants. While Azrin and Hayes purposefully did not specify discriminative stimuli in their study, successful discrimination does not require the ability to verbally identify the discriminative stimulus. SDS, for initiation of interaction, might have included the woman maintaining eye contact and showing a felt smile. Ekman and Friesen, 1982. The S delta, for initiation of interaction, might have included looking away, frowning, or fidgeting in a particular way. The third component of a functional analysis, a consequence, is a stimulus that follows the behavior. There are 2 main types of consequences, a reinforcer and a punisher. A reinforcer is a consequence that increases the strength, for example, frequency, duration, intensity of the behavior it follows. A punisher is a consequence that decreases the strength of the behavior it follows. Notice that these 2 types of consequences are defined by their effect on behavior and not the expectation or intention of the practitioner. This is important because reinforcers and punishers often defy what the practitioner expects or intends. For example, praise is often delivered with the expectation that it will reinforce the behavior it follows. In fact, it often does not. Figure 1 depicts the 4 main consequences. To determine the type of consequence a practitioner has observed, he or she has the following steps. Yeah? Yes? Yeah? Okay. Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. Be right back. Gotta close the windows.